Wake up, honey. We have new cards for Hearthstone's newest expansion, Perils in Paradise. Today we actually got Paladin, but you're like, why am I over at Mage? It's because Mage gets the Paladin Taurus this expansion, which means we could use Paladin cards if you're playing Mage for this expansion only. And I want to read Rayla once again because she is, in my mind at least, a very powerful card. As a 4-mana 2/5, after you cast the spell, summon a random 2-cost minion and give it Divine Shields. I think this card is going to be very strong based on what's in the standard pool already, as well as what Mage has gone in this expansion with cards like Go With The Flow and Sea Breeze Chalice. I do think there is some kind of tempo Mage deck that might be playable, but it could get even better with Paladin cards being added in. Well, obviously they're going to be added, but to the Mage arsenal, right? So let's go through them. Life-Saving Aura. 1 mana at the end of your turn, get a 1-cost sunscreen that gives +1/+2 in the last 3 turns. So interesting. This is actually like, see, again, like this fits into Paladin already. I don't know if you necessarily want to play this. I'm not sure what deck really needs this, because we have to consider what Paladin's doing currently, which is like hand buff Paladin and maybe Highlander Paladin. Mage, on the other hand, with Rayla, like this is where it comes really handy, right? Because you're gonna set up for a really big swing turn with Rayla. So I mean, I could definitely see this being played in Mage. You get a bunch of 1-cost spells. You play Rayla that you absolutely pop off with maybe some coins or whatever. Also Holy, which I think is somewhat relevant, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm just wondering, like, what Paladin deck really wants this. There might be a payoff card for this, so we're gonna have to wait until later. Also, I guess it's important to note what the Paladin Taurus does as well with Lanessa. I swear to God, if one of you type feet in my comment section, I'm gonna lose it on you. Rogue Tourist, your spells that cost 2 or less cast twice. So we don't know what the rogue cards necessarily are yet, but we have to remember that every Paladin card that costs 2 or less that's a spell does proc twice. So if you have Lanessa and you play this, I believe auras count as spells, so you would get 2 auras because they could stack currently. And on top of that, if you have Lanessa and you play the sunscreen, for 1 mana you get +2/+4, which can be really, really powerful. God, this reviewing cards in this set is so much more convoluted than all these other sets, man. You have to think about it so much. Overall, I'm not 100% sure if Mage or Paladin really wants this, but let's see what the rest of the cards are. 1 mana, give a character Divine Shield. If it already had one, give it +1 attack this turn. So it's interesting that it says character, because if it was a minion, obviously you can only give this to a minion, but that means you can give this to your hero and or the opponent's hero, which is, I guess, something you could consider if you really want it. In Mage, this is something really interesting because you can go Divine Brew and then play it on your, hold on, I gotta scroll the way down for some reason, play it on your Rayla and then like you're popping off. But realistically, this is a very good card. It's good for like hand buff, because if you want to like trade into a minion but you don't want your minion to die, it's really great. You could trade and then add a Divine Shield after. It works with like any minion. I mean, for 1 mana to give yourself a Divine Shield, it's not bad. It's funny too, because I think in Classic there's a card called Divine Protection, maybe, which I think is 1 mana to give a minion Divine Shield. This is power creep at its finest, because you could give your minion +1 attack as well for this turn, or your hero for this turn, and then you could also do it 3 times, which is, I think, really cool. Will this card be played? Again, I'm not really sure. Maybe in the Tempo Mage deck, maybe in some kind of aggro Paladin or the hand buff Paladin, maybe in Highlander. Let's see let's continue going, because I feel like there's got to be a bigger payoff for these. Service Ace, 3 mana 3/3. After this minion gains attack, reduce the cost of the highest cost card in your hand by 1. Oh my God. Okay. 3 mana 3/3 for a minion is kind of bad. So in order for this minion to be good, you need to have it and you need to have a buff. So you need to have minimum for like 4 mana. And that doesn't sound very good. That sounds really weak, because you're basically investing into a bigger payoff. Mage want this? I mean, maybe, but I think Mage can do a lot better than this. I don't think this card's that good. Again, maybe there's some kind of payoff we haven't seen before. So let's continue going and then we'll come back to it. See Shanty, 10 mana, another spell. Summon 3/5/5 pirates, cost 1 less for each spell you've cast on characters this game. Again, it's cool that they're doing characters, and these are what the pirates look like. And imagine that you probably get 3 different ones. Like you get like probably one of these. How much mana does this have to cost for you to really want to play it? So at 10 mana to summon 15/15, it's awful. Let's go to 8 mana, because 9 mana sounds unplayable too. 8 mana to summon 15/15 with stats. Again, I'm not really feeling it. 6 mana. I mean, 6 mana is kind of nuts. If we're calling Boulder Fist Ogre good stats for the cost, that's 6 mana. And that's a 6 mana 6/7. 6 mana to summon 15/15 is kind of insane that it can only get better from there. That's a pretty nuts card. That makes you want to play like a buff deck. Now, again, let's talk about Mage for a quick second. Does Mage ever want to play this? I don't think Mage plays this. You definitely need to put this into a deck that has a lot of buffs. And I'm sure like once we see the Rogue package as well, this might be even better. But this actually has potential to be really, really good. If you could get this down very early on, like I guess like this and like potentially the buffs you get from this and or like the life-saving aura could be really, really good to disenchant this as much as possible, because not only are you reducing the cost of your highest cost spell in your hand, which could be the oh my god, the sea shanty. God, this is hard. Like my tongue is twisting. You also get to reduce it again because you buffed a minion or you cast a spell on one of your characters, which is cool. Could be really, really good. Grillmaster, 4 mana 3/4. Battlecry, draw your lowest cost card. Death Rattle, draw your highest cost card. Why is the related sunscreen? I'm not sure. 4 mana 3/4 to draw 2 cards. It's interesting that Paladin gets the highest cost card. That's a mechanic that like we saw Lowkeeper pull Kel from Skullman's Academy, and that was like one of the best legendaries in recent memory, at least in my opinion. 3 mana 3/4 to draw your lowest is the Battlecry is fine. I mean, I guess it really comes down to 4 mana to draw 2 specific cards in your deck. I think if you need this, this is not bad. And Mage potentially could use this in a deck where like maybe Rayla is your highest cost card. You want to find it specifically. It's also really good to get your highest cost card as soon as possible, so you could start discounting it with the service Ace. I think you're mainly playing this 4 mana 3/4 draw 2, but I mean, in a world where like the Pan Man exists and potentially other draw, I don't know if this is really good, because the thing is like for Paladin is this really going to be good enough? I guess. Hold on. Draw your highest cost card. At the time I'm recording this, they nerfed Reno to 10 mana, which means in Highlander Paladin, you probably get your Reno guaranteed, which is a really nice thing to get. So maybe it actually gets playable from there. This is like if you need very specific cards, it could be playable, I guess. You know what I mean? All right, Lifeguard. Hey, no aggro in the pool. 4 mana 2/7. Taunt. Battlecry, the next spell you cast has lifesteal. The next spell you cast has lifesteal. It's important to note that this isn't for this turn only. It's the next spell you cast, which can be really good. Now we got to talk about this. There's so much implications with this card. In Paladin, this is very good. It's also a 4 mana 2/7. So like, even if you don't hand buff it, that's kind of an annoying stat line. Your opponent has to get through with it. You could soften minions up so you can go for like a huge AoE clear, which has got to feel fantastic. In Mage might really like this. Imagine you had Flame Strike, but then it had Lifesteal. Imagine if you had Blizzard and it had Lifesteal. Imagine if you had Sunset Volley and it had Lifesteal. This is a card that if some kind of slower deck does come afoot, which is a pun intended, this could be really, really good. And there's so many other spells I'm not even considering that are already like, that are probably going to be coming out or for the next 2 years, right? Like this could be very relevant at some point to really push a slower deck. This is the type of card that I think like these bigger, slower decks desperately need to like stay alive and swap tempo. But I don't know. It's a cool card. I'm trying to think if realistically does Mage want this right now, like because Mage got so many big spells, right? And for some, like, if you can go like coin Lifeguard into, I hate the way they do this site, coin Lifeguard into King Tide, and then like I don't know, some fucking like I don't know how it works with Tsunami. Like, does the water elementals get lifesteal? I don't know. There's a lot of implications here. Cool card. I might actually see play. Power Spike, 6 mana, deal 4 damage, give a random friendly minion +4/+4, and it's holy. So in Mage, I'm not sure if you want this. This is much more of a Paladin card, I think. And in Paladin, 6 mana to deal 4 damage sounds so bad, right? Like we like, for instance, we have Frostbolt. Frostbolt is 2 mana to deal 3 and freeze. We have Arcane Shot, 1 mana to deal 2. Doesn't seem that great. Give a random friendly minion +4/+4 on the other hand, though. So if Blessing of Kings is 4 mana, that card doesn't see play. They can't even have 3 mana. I mean, 3 mana is probably playable. I think this card might be too weak. Now, God, I'm thinking about Arena, for instance, man. Arena could be fire with this card, right? You're ahead on board. Your opponent plays a minion. You get a good way to trade, maybe kill something at the same time. I think it's really cool. Also, I haven't really talked about this entire expansion, or this video at least, but this is an absolutely hilarious card. Power spike. It makes total sense. You're dealing damage and you're buffing. That's awesome. I love it. I love the name there too. All right, let's see the what is this? What the frick is this? A sandcastle? I guess that's actually dude, I didn't read the name yet. I just looked at it. That's actually amazing. All right, 5 mana, 3/8. Rush after this attacks turn into a location, and it's an elemental. 5 mana, give a friendly minion +3 attack and rush. Turn back into a minion. This has rush too. Oh. So the durability of this probably is connected 1-to-1 to the actual minion. So I'd imagine if you're at like 6 life and then you change it to location, it has whatever life is left. And then I actually think if you buff this card, it probably transfers the attack over, which is really, really cool. So you can kind of keep buffing this card up and it can keep being a nuisance. This is, you know what this card really reminds me of? I forget the name of it. The weapon from Castle Nathria that warrior got that like once you swing it turns into a minion, then like the durability and attack is the same thing as like what the minion stats would be. If you know, I forget the name. It's been, I can't believe I forgot the name. The card is so cool. Same kind of concept. I think a mage wants this because Paladin might want this too. This is a really cool card with like hand buff, right? You could buff this card up, get a fat dude, and then like you always have this card available if you want it. And it can consistently swap back and forth between a location because the turn that you use the location, it goes back to the minion, and then the minion can probably swing, turn back into a location. It is so interesting how this card is going to do. It's a lot of questions for like sequencing and like how this card actually operates. And until I really get like an answer from one of the devs and or like actually play with it, it's really hard to evaluate a card like this. But initial evaluation here, this card looks very good. I'm going to be real. This is one of the better cards we've seen in Paladin, I think. It's in almost every archetype. Hand buff wants this. Highlander probably wants this. I mean, like the Flood deck probably doesn't, but I'm sure a new Paladin deck will come from this. And maybe even Mage wants this, right? Because it's important to note that this is Elemental. And Mage actually has like an Elemental deck currently in Standard. So I think this card's going to be one of the better legendaries. Yeah, I could definitely see it. All right, we saw this card already, but Voluminous, 3 mana, 3/2. After hero attacks, get a 1-cost sunscreen that gives +1 and +2. As a weapon, a 3 mana 3/2 isn't great. Obviously, you would like something better. But if you do want 1-cost sunscreens, which you get 2 of, which is give a minion +1, +2, it's okay, I guess. I'm not really optimistic on this. Like we can compare this basically directly to life-saving aura, right? I'm not really sure what you would want. Mage could use a weapon, which I guess is pretty cool. So I guess it fits still into like the spell deck. I'm not sure what actually, let me go read these real fast. What does the spell deck read for Mage? Is it minions or is it as long as your deck only contains spells? If your deck has no minions. Okay, so Spell Mage could utilize that if they really want to, which is kind of sick. I could kind of see Mage maybe running that, especially because you do get to fight for board aggressively with Rayla, and then on top of that, you get to buff more dudes, which is sick. And then of course we have Sunsapper Lanessa. 5 mana 2/6 with the Rogue Tourist. Again, this card will arguably get even stronger with the fact that Rogue cards generally cost 2 or less. At least some of them do. We're focusing on spells, which is nice. Like imagine if there's like some kind of Shadow Step, it'd be insane. I think this card's nuts. Again, we're going to have to wait and see. I'm going to be real here, man. The more I look at the cards in this set, the more I think about that this expansion might be one of the most powerful we've ever seen. Right? Like we're still missing so much of this set and we don't really know what's coming. But just from the neutrals, just from Mage and Paladin, like it seems really good. Like obviously we got this broken ass card, so we're gonna have to wait and see. I think this is gonna be a really important expansion for Hearthstone's future for power level, at least. And I'm hoping it doesn't go completely ridiculous here. Let me know what you think down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your night.